All right. And we are off and running. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Lavelle Hewitt. I am your host of Do It in the Dark, podcast on introspection and accountability. If you're trying to find me on social media, I am the hospice guy on Instagram, as well as I am podcast underscore do it on Instagram, as well on Twitter. So, what's up, everybody? Thank you for coming and joining our live session today. We are recording another episode of Do It in the Dark, podcast on introspection and accountability. And tonight, I'm not going to take too much time, but I did want to talk to you guys today about three very important things. So, tonight, we're going to talk about being intentional. What exactly does it mean to be intentional with with what you're doing in business? I want you to understand the impact that we all have when we are able to be intentional. The second thing we're going to talk about is being able to use your words and that your words matter. And be careful what you say and what you wish, because the atmosphere will pick it up and will reciprocate what you put out. And then, third, last but not least, I want to talk to you guys about finish what you started. And this is a big conversation, or a big topic rather, that needs to be had, and more conversations surrounding finish what you started need to elevate what everybody's doing, and it doesn't matter what space you're in. So let's go ahead and get started with this. Be intentional, and what I mean by be intentional is your life is to be lived intentional. If you are a business person, you had the idea. So the emphasis of your company or the thought came from somewhere, right? You had an idea that you wanted to put out. And for whatever reason, the idea turned into dust, right? You had the intention of starting, but then all of a sudden, you life happens and you chicken out. It happens to all of us. Maybe you talked to the wrong person and they motivated you out of doing what you were initially trying to do. But if this is your first time joining, I want you guys to understand something. Do It in the Dark is a podcast that's based on introspection and accountability. We hold ourselves accountable for what we get done and the things that we don't get done. There's no reason for you to look at somebody else and point the finger and blame them for what you didn't do and what you didn't finish. So let's talk about what be intentional is. I found an article. A lot of my research is based in psychological thinking. My background is in education and psychology. So I found an article, and in the article on Psychology Today, it talks about when you're being intentional, there's certain things that you got to hold yourself accountable for. So I'm going to read this excerpt, and then we're going to break down some things that I put together that I think will help you as you start to live your life with intention. All right. So what does it mean to evaluate your reality clearly? That means gaining a deep understanding of your external environment, your immediate surroundings, your social circle, your career, and anything else of relevance. That also means your own internal environment, your patterns, your feelings, thinkings, behavior. And this comes from psychologytoday.com. And so that last piece is what I want you to mostly tune in on, because I live by that. Your internal environment. What is the environment that you are made of, right? In psychology, we talk about nature and the nurture, and how the two of them together brings out the type of person and the personality that you will have once you become 7 or 8 years old. And it is now demonstrated in how you respond, how you behave, and how you react. How you respond, behave, and how you predict behavior, not react. React and respond are the same thing. But how you can predict something that's going to happen, or how people can predict how you're going to behave and respond to certain situations. So As we're sitting here and I'm talking about being intentional, one of the areas that you do a reality check on is going to be your social digestion. Let's talk about what are we putting into ourselves from a social perspective. So I broke down 4 points that I want to talk to you guys about in terms of let's clear these things up so we can be more intentional to do things that we want in our business. So with social media, and it doesn't matter which platform, I want you guys to, please understand, I don't have a favorite platform of choice. I think whatever feeds your need is where you should be. And it doesn't matter which social media platform you subscribe to. But the point of it is 90% of information processing and information gathering is now in the form of social media. Most of the world is connected to some platform of social media and they're digesting information. So when you are digesting information as a business owner or just as a general person who's wanting to change some things in their lives, these are the 4 areas you need to focus on: education, spiritual, thought provoking, and then entertaining. I'm going to say it again. If you're on social media, it should feed 4 areas of your life. And those areas are educational, spiritual, thought provoking, and then entertaining. So let's break those 4 down, right? Educational. If you're not learning, you're declining. The brain is a muscle, and that muscle needs to be developed and stimulated all the time. So what we've learned over the past 20 plus years that technology has evolved and changed, is that the more we depend on the new technologies, the less we depend on actual brain function. So some would say that the technology is making us dumber. I don't think that. I think what we choose to do with the technology is what actually makes us dumber. And I don't want to say dumber, but it causes the decline in a lot of people. So from an educational standpoint, it would behoove you to utilize any of the social media platforms to continue learning, right? Continue developing. There's a lot of new things coming out in terms of artificial intelligence. There's a lot of information about investing your money properly. 10 years ago, we were only going to certain centralized places to get this information. Right now, this information is at our fingertips with the different areas of opportunity for all of us to take advantage of. But people have to make sure that we are taking advantage of the information that's out there. One of the biggest things about education, I want to touch on what exactly is a decline. So if you're not learning, you're declining. And so what do I mean by that? It's very simple. The way your brain works is it has to be stimulated in order for you to continue to operate at a high level. If you're not stimulating your brain properly, it affects your memory, it affects your reaction, it affects your ability to make sound decisions. So, if you're going to be on social media, you need to increase the amount of time that you are educating yourself to be a productive, progressive person in in this new time. So the second thing is spiritual. If you're not feeding your energy, your vibration, or you are now becoming stagnant. Because just like the brain, your body needs to be fed as well. Um, in terms of my spirituality, I subscribe to the form of Christianity. Everybody may not subscribe to one religion, right? So if you are a person who has a certain type of religious belief, then you need to zone in on the things that feed into what your religious beliefs are. If you're not a religious person, if you're just spiritual or you're just someone who moves off of energy, or somebody who thinks of the world in more of just a holistic spiritual expectation, you still need to feed that in yourself, because at the end of the day, if you're not feeding yourself spiritually, your body and your thinking and your reaction to the conscious decision making becomes stagnant. So, just to make that a little bit clearer, if you're not feeding your spiritual aspect of yourself, you're not in tune with what your moral meter is telling you to do. And in business, that is very, very important for you to stay grounded so that you can make sound moral decisions as a business owner. Okay. So, feed your educational aspects to make sure that you're not declining in life. Feed your spirituality because you don't want to become stagnant, and make sure that you are always keeping your moral compass pointed in the right direction. And then the third aspect will be, what are you searching for and consuming from a social media standpoint that you would consider to be thought provoking or newsworthy? Now, a lot of us watch and we stay abreast of certain current events, but are you reading things that are thought provoking and interesting in a certain industry? And this is not just for educational value. Sometimes you can read things that are thought provoking in the industry of business because it is intriguing, because it motivates you, and because it gives you a sense of um, accomplishments that you can see from other people. And now you can, kind of put that into your subconscious to operate, knowing that these things exist. It is your job to motivate yourself. However, being able to see it creates a thought-provoking uh, opportunity for you to think about what it is you're learning and what it is you're looking at from and gaining from other people. And then last but not least, entertainment. I think entertainment in the social media world has and the social media aspect has really taken over a lot of people's time. On your phone, if you have an iPhone, it will give you the breakdown of what your screen time is. Most people can look at their screen time, and on average in the United States, the average person spends about 14 to 16 hours on their phone throughout the 24-hour day. Some people, depending on the age, spend more time. Now, if you're on your phone, we'll say 14 to 16 hours a day, and you're utilizing social media, out of the four things that we just talked about, how much of that is broken up into you just seeking entertainment? So, entertainment is good because laughter is good for the soul, right? But you can't spend your time watching negative things that impact your energy and your decision making. As a business owner, it would behoove you to watch something where a business owner can tell you a story about something that makes you understand their struggle just a little bit easier, but does not paint the picture that struggle is all you have. Because trust me, it is extremely, extremely important that you don't spend too much time putting negative information into your psyche. So, those are the four things. I want to touch on those again. As you are forming your life to make sure that you can be intentional about what your decisions are in business, 90% of the information we receive now comes from the social media platforms. If you're going to get information from social media, check yourself and make sure that there are 4 areas that you're feeding properly, and that's going to be educational, spiritual, thought-provoking, or newsworthy, and entertainment. Those 4 areas. But you want to make sure that there's at least a balance in the way that you receive this information and that it does make sense for you to do. Don't spend all of your time just being entertained. Don't spend all of your time just watching news and current events, because it in itself will affect the way that your energy, the way that your mood is assessed. Don't spend all your time on just the spiritual aspect, because if you're just looking at your spiritual need and you are overwhelmed and overly digest only the spiritual aspect, that is good to feed that. But are you doing anything about your life in the here and now, right? What type of educational value are you giving yourself? Because the world is changing around you. So make sure you understand education, spiritual, thought provoking, and entertaining. So the next thing, as we talk about being intentional in business, and I want to always bring this back to business. When you're starting your business, everybody starts off and we have goals that we kind of preset, or we have these visions, right? But somewhere along the way, we get lost in the criticisms of everybody else, the the emotional attachments that we all bear, and we stop. Some of us procrastinate to a point where we never finish what we start. And that's the next point I want to talk about in a minute. But right now, I want to give you guys a quick story, and I want to tell you the importance of using your words and making sure that you live through what you're manifesting. So, the industry I'm in, my name is Lavelle Hewitt, and I own Autumn View Hospice. We started the company. I have 2 partners, and we started the company in 2020, right in the throes of the pandemic. But what I can tell you is the 3 of us, when we meet with the intention of doing good work. We come to the table with good ideas, all 3 of us. We come to the table wanting to hear the other person. We come to the table knowing that each person's value is important. And so when we say things, it never comes from a negative point. It never comes from a negative place. It never comes from an egotistical point of view. I am responsible for what I say to my partners in our meetings, because I understand that what I'm about to say to them impacts the future of our company. Now, when we first got started, I met with them and I gave them a sketch of what the company is going to look like, right? And I said, this is what we're looking to do. We wrote it down. We met about it, and I was intentional to say, in a year, this is what I want the company to look like. The 3 of us worked together, and every goal that we've set since 2020 has been met or exceeded. Now here, as we sit here, February 23rd, 2023, we are meeting or exceeding all of our goals. Each time we set a goal, we write it down, the 3 of us discuss it, and we say it as though we believe it's going to happen. And I believe that intention has helped us to be successful. We have some very lofty goals coming in 2024, but everything that we've set out to do has been accomplished. Now, in most cases, some people say that's, good for you, but that doesn't happen all the time. I would question that because I think it happens more often than people will give it time to happen. The problem with it is it's not that it doesn't happen. My opinion is the problem is we quit before we get to the point to see it through, which takes me into my next point. You got to finish what you started. When you are intentional, you have the idea, and the idea comes from a place in you. It's birthed out of your gut, and it is a real idea. But somewhere along the line, we allow other people to diminish that idea. And so it disintegrates into dust. And one or two things happen. You regret that you never got an opportunity to finish it, or you pick up where you started and you procrastinate your way through certain steps, fumbling, but you don't really finish it. I want to challenge you today. And the reason we call this show Do It in the Dark, because a lot of times you will have to be the only person that believes that the idea is good. A lot of times you will be the only person who understands the importance of doing what you initially thought of. Sometimes it will only make sense to you. So, where it is good to get buy in from other people, when you have an initial idea that you start writing on, you start working on, you got to see it through. Because the power in seeing it through is not so much that it does succeed and becomes super successful. That's always great. But you want to see the steps that you took to get it from conception to completion and see what steps were taken and how they can impact you as you do something again. Did this work? Did it not work? Right? The hurdles that come across, that come with starting a company from an idea aspect and then taking it to process and procedures and then functionality and then profitability, those things come along the way. But if you can just get started, the universe will always give you the tools needed to get to the finish line. So I'm going to say it again. If you can just get started, the universe will provide the tools necessary to get you to the finish line. As I wrap up today, I want to talk to you and I want to end this and I bring everything to a close that the importance of being intentional in your business is very simple and is no different than being intentional in your life. The parallel of the two is that your life at some point has to become what your business is going to look like. And I say that because I've always wanted to try to keep things separate, right? I wanted to keep my hospice business separate from the person I am. But for me, it's not set up that way because even though I am a business owner, there are days where I have to show up and I want to show up because I want to be involved. And I say that in the sense that as a business owner, there's differences between being a business owner and self-employed. We'll talk about that another time. But as a business owner, I don't have to show up in order to make money. My company still runs because the team is strong and everybody knows their role. The part I'm talking about is when you are intentional about the success of that company, you do show up and you show up every day, whether you have to be there or not, because it becomes a part of you. And so my company is a part of me. So I had to change my name on Instagram because I want people to recognize that I am the hospice guy. If you have questions about hospice, you can come to me. I deal with this every day. I'm good at it. So be intentional about what your company is supposed to be doing. Be intentional about what you're saying about your company, and guard yourself in terms of, be careful who you talk to about your ideas. Most ideas are birthed in the dark. You keep them in the dark and you work on them until you bring it to light. That's why we say do it in the dark. But finish what you start at all costs. The goal, the purpose of this podcast is to tell you, finish what you started. Be intentional and finish what you started. All right. Again, my name is Lavelle Hewitt. This is Do It in the Dark. Thank you for joining us. And if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at The Hospice Guy or podcast_do it on Instagram business page and Twitter. Peace.